This webinar will focus on 3 unique use cases that we feel really kind of expose all the key features and functionality of Canvas. We are changing the format a little bit of this webinar. If you've seen our previous webinars, they're up on YouTube, so please see them. That was more kind of the product demonstration. This one will be more of a panel discussion. The panelists we have are senior level Jupyter employees who all have been with the company since Canvas first got introduced more than 8 years ago. So let me introduce Craig Stumbaugh. He's the in charge of US and Canada sales. We have Daniel LeCour, who's in charge of international sales. And we have Erwin Daley, who's our senior field sales engineer. My name is Devon Wright. I'm the product manager here at Jupyter Systems. So with that, we'll start the presentation. All right, one thing I do want to point out is that I am very happy to say that Canvas has been in the field for more than 8 years now. We've had thousands of Canvas deployments, both large and small. The product has grown from just really a pure command and control and video wall management software into a video wall collaboration platform. For the agenda today, I will give a brief overview of Jupyter Systems, then an overview of Canvas to start, and then each person will kind of dig a little deeper into the individual use cases. Each use case will be in a different market. After each one, we will be doing a Q&A section. So please use the Q&A tool in the Zoom application during or after each use case. We will be answering them directly after the presenter is done. So now please sit back, relax, and enjoy learning about Canvas. All right, so why Jupyter Systems? Jupyter Systems has been the premier video wall supplier since 1981. Yes, that's almost 40 years. We have a global footprint of more than 25,000 installations over 50 countries. We are a display agnostic brand and technology. So what that means is you can use any display technology you want with our processors. So for example, you can use a traditional LCD, rear projector or rear projection cubes, or even direct view LEDs. We definitely support custom output resolutions. So that's just a few technologies, to name a few. All the Jupyter technology is built to run on mission critical 24/7 environments. If you have something that's lower, like a boardroom, that's definitely our solution will be able to fit in that. But that's kind of our methodical thinking in when we do design hardware and software platforms. We do all of our design and manufacturing assembly in-house here in Hayward, California. That's where I'm at. We are an independent US-based corporation. One of the big themes that you'll see throughout this whole webinar is our airtight security and cybersecurity. So that's definitely a big focus when we are doing the engineering design. So we definitely have a lot of installs, in critical infrastructure, as well as a lot of US military, not obviously here, but internationally as well. So with that, it kind of gives us a unique view and be able to build out critical solutions and being able to really collaborate and bring that collaboration inside the control room. Once again, everything is made in the US here in Hayward, California. One thing I do want to mention is we are an ISO 9001:2015 certified production floor. So here's kind of the overview of our product portfolio. So on the top part, you'll see the Canvas collaborative visualization software. And that's kind of what we're discussing now. And it really gives you a real-time view of operations. It enables distributed teams really to access live videos and data to not only see, but also collaborate and manage different endpoints. We support multiple display walls, PCs, smartphones, and tablets, all within the same kind of Canvas ecosystem. So we always try to be unique in that aspect and always try to bring the BYOD approach, which is bring your own device. We do recognize that Canvas is a lot of an IT tool as well, since you are on the network. So being able to bridge that gap between AV and IP is really important for us. And it is an enterprise piece of software. So you can have an unlimited amount of Canvas clients. So on the bottom part is our hardware, display wall and visualization hardware that we make here. The first one is the J series. So we just did a webinar a few months ago on the J series. Please see that on our YouTube page. But it is our appliance-based display wall solution. Then we have the Catalyst, which is really the workhorse of Jupiter systems. The Catalyst line has been around for about 15 years, straddling, Windows 7 to Windows 8, and now obviously Windows 10. Then we have PixelNet. PixelNet was first introduced in 2008. Now we have refreshed the hardware for PixelNet Generation 2. We just released PDC 3.4, and that was actually our last webinar last month. So please go ahead, check that out. It has a lot of great information. One thing I do want to mention about PixelNet is currently it is not integrated with Canvas, but that is going to change in the next release at the end of 2020. We will have that integration. We will be doing a specific webinar about that. So if you are interested, please stay tuned. We should be doing that fairly soon. And that'll be with the Canvas 6.5 release. And so once again, we will be doing a webinar, so please stay tuned for that. So while we're all here, Canvas. It is the ultimate video wall collaboration solution. And it is a very easy to use video wall solution. It lets you seamlessly view, control, and manage any device. You can quickly and easily visualize any source that you want. Or any video or any data. And that's one of the things I'm actually really proud about as a product manager, is giving the customer the ability to view any type of data that they want, right? Rather than the traditional HDMI or DVI feeds or DisplayPort feeds, right? Being able to ingest any type of data into our video wall processors and now distribute that is a really powerful tool. Once again, one of the big themes that you'll see here is our security aspect, security features, access level controls. And so that's definitely one of the things we always keep in mind when we are building and designing our features and processors. And once again, we enable collaboration between users, video walls, workstations, and mobile device. My biggest thing as a product manager, once again, is people work at their fingertips now, whether you're sitting down at your desk, or you could be even viewing this webinar on your phone, right? Having those tools and having that access is extremely important, and we value that, and that's why we bring these type of solutions to you. So why Canvas? Canvas is trusted by industry professionals. It is deployed in almost every single video wall market you can think of. For example, security, utility, 911 is some of the examples we'll be given today. We have enterprise features like high availability, automatic failover, and really an IT integration. Obviously, we design everything for mission critical 24/7 uptime. And the software platform from a technology level supports three main pieces of hardware. The first one's going to be our Catalyst line, which is our Windows-based line. The third one's going to be third-party hardware, so off-the-shelf hardware. And the third one, once again, starting in Canvas 6.5, we will be supporting PixelNet as well. So that's a very exciting news. So with that, we'll jump in directly into the use cases. I'll turn it over for Craig so we can start his presentation.
Thank you, Devon. As you mentioned, each application, each market, we approach differently based on the needs and requirements of that specific use case. But with each market, there are some typical sources, some typical requirements that those customers require of our solution. And right now we're going to go through the utility application that was brought to us earlier this year. And this was an existing customer of ours that was using our Catalyst display wall processors to manage their video wall, but weren't taking advantage of Canvas and the capabilities that Canvas has to offer. And one of the big reasons for that was the pandemic. And a lot of their personnel were at potential risk, and they didn't want to compromise their network and their service to their customers as they manage both transmission and distribution of power, electric utility to their customer base. So One thing that's very important in the utility space is cybersecurity. Obviously, they want to maintain a very secure environment, secure network, so that nobody has access to that doesn't have permission to, and that could maliciously take advantage of that and cause disruption. With the pandemic coming on and personnel concerns important, there was a reduction of staff. And this was something that the organization put forth, where they were having half of their employees work from home 14 days in a row, and then the other half were working on site in the operations center. So they did this so that if there was anybody who potentially got sick, they wouldn't affect the entire operations staff, and they would always have a fresh staff that could come in on a 14-day rotation. So with that, they wanted to make sure that the operators that were working remotely, working from home, had the same access and ability to interact and control as if they were sitting in the operations center. And that was one of the major concerns and major requirements that they came to us with, and wanted to make sure that our solution was able to provide that. They wanted, obviously, something that would integrate with their existing Catalyst display wall processors to not only give them the ability to manage the content on the video walls, but also extend that out to the remote workers. And then this particular customer had multiple sites within a given area that they were responsible for. And within each one of those sites, there were multiple walls. So they needed to maintain the same level of access and ability to manage the content on those different video walls, no matter where they were throughout their network. And then as the workers, operators were moving to a work from home environment, they needed to still have the same ability to collaborate with their peers in a virtual environment as if they were sitting in the operations center right next to the other operators that they were working with or supporting. So that was also important, that they didn't have this out of touch remote feeling by not being in the operations center at the same time that their peers were. And then the content, typically in a utility application, is more application based, where they're looking at SCADA data, outage management systems, and other types of applications crucial to the systems that they oversee and manage. So for them, the ability to have access to that content and be able to manipulate that content and share that content among the different operators that are working on different segments was also very important. And then since the work from home order literally came overnight, where they decided to take half of their staff and move them to a work from home environment, IT really didn't have an opportunity to kind of vet a solution in the totality that they normally would, and be able to go out and go through a solution and test it and make sure that it's going to meet all their security requirements. So they were counting on our solution, which they had been utilizing our hardware to meet those same requirements that they have in a NERC-CIP requirement that they have for network integrity. And also because those operators are going to be using company issued laptops, they needed to not have to load software on those. So they wanted to have something that was going to be web-based and not be a thick client or a direct load application on their laptops that they were going to be working from home from. So the Canvas solution itself, being that it was designed for the enterprise, and what do we mean by that? This has been certified by several IT organizations, as well as IT groups within the customer sets that deploy our solutions. And it is also integrated with the corporate Active Directory of those various organizations. So that gives the IT group peace of mind that they have that same level of security and can manage who has access to content and who has access to control and manipulate various sources, or manage the content on a wall, or be able to communicate with anyone else in the organization. And by doing that, we're managing it through roles in the Active Directory integration in the Canvas server that is authenticating each Canvas client in the field, whether they're in the operations center or that operator is working from home. So we want to make sure that their permission set is mirrored with what the corporate permissions are, and that they still have the same level of access to those various sources to not only view them, but to also potentially manipulate them or to manage the content on the various video walls. And to do that, those remote users working from home during the pandemic are using a traditional VPN, where they're able to access their corporate network with their credentials, whether they're using an RSA token or some other method to gain access to the corporate network. Once they have access, they now have the ability to view the various sources or content that they have permission to see. Additionally, there is a great concern for, what is that content and how is it traversing the network and now going out to those endpoints where the remote workers are located, and the security integrity of that content. And we encrypt all of that content from end to end so that no one that doesn't have permission has the ability to actually view that content maliciously or hacking into the system to be able to see that. So the encryption is also very important. With that, in our recent release of Canvas 6.0, we now have the option to run the Canvas client and the Canvas software in a web-based environment versus that thick client or application that's loaded directly on operator workstations or operator laptops. So that made it much easier for the remote worker to simply launch a web page once they've gained access through their VPN and be able to bring up the Canvas Mimic and other tools that are part of the Canvas client and be able to view those sources that they need to see for their role or their position that they're responsible for. And then also the ability to manage those sources, manipulating them to bring up the information or data they need, as well as collaborating with their peers with the different features that are built into Canvas, such as the whiteboarding and other tools that are built in. So it was perfect timing this year that we were able to offer that web-based application and really give IT that peace of mind as they had to pivot literally overnight to a much larger environment that they were responsible for, and be able to maintain access for their remote workers that were going to be connecting and now working from home during the pandemic.
All right, cool. Thank you, Craig. I think we have a topology diagram if you want to help step us through each component.
Sure. So if we focus, kind of on the left side of the red firewall line here, you've got your traditional video wall in the operations center, and you can see the operator workstations there. And if you notice, there aren't many operators, sitting here because of the work from home order that was given. But they still have to maintain the operation of the organization and make sure that the power that they're responsible for is getting to the endpoints that it's supposed to, whether that's on the transmission or distribution side. And the video wall here is being managed by one of our Catalyst XL processors. That Catalyst is obviously connected to the corporate network of the organization. And as you see down below, you've got one of your operator positions where they're sitting in front of their workstation with all their monitors and data that's being presented to them. And this is their normal work environment. And then up at the top, you've got the corporate Active Directory, which, that operator, when he comes in the morning, authenticates his credentials against so that he can gain access to his emails and whatever other corporate communication that he needs to do his job. And we've integrated the Canvas server into the enterprise. And that Canvas server serves two roles. One, it authenticates that user in the Canvas ecosystem as to what permissions he has to view and access content and potentially manipulate that content, as well as pointing him to the different sources that he needs to see at his workstation. Now, you've got a pandemic, you've got operators that no longer are sitting in the operations center and they're outside the firewall and they need to gain access to the network to be able to maintain and do their same job that they would as if they were in the operations center or the command center of the organization. And again, they're using VPN to be able to gain access to the network and authenticate themselves, again, against the Active Directory. And at the same time, the Canvas server through single sign-on, they're able to have that same permission set as if they were working in the operations center, now working from home. And in fact, this customer went from several Catalyst display wall processors managing all their video walls to adding over 100 Canvas clients for their remote operators to gain access and to maintain operations. And we even have some of those operators sitting in their family rooms, taking an HDMI cable from their laptop and plugging that into their TV in their family room or living room. And now through the Canvas client running on their corporate furnished laptop, they're able to window their TV in their living room or family room as if they were sitting at their operator workstation in the command center or operations center. So from their perspective, they have the same visibility, the same content, and the video wall is anywhere they are once they VPN'd into the system. So it really has been able to manage and maintain the same level of access and operational awareness.
Thank you, Craig. All right, so so we're going to the Q&A section for this use case. We already have a couple questions here. The first one is, when is 6.5 going to be released? And that's going to be scheduled to be released at the end of this year, 2020. We have a few more questions here. One is, can you have multiple Canvas servers on a single system?
Yes, you definitely can. And in fact, in most deployments, not only do we recommend having redundant Canvas servers for the obvious reasons of redundancy and failover, but most organizations require that. And we support all of the traditional IT mechanisms that are deployed for server failovers that organizations use, whether that's vSphere or others. And the way we configure that is there's a primary Canvas server, and then there's a redundant Canvas server that is mirroring the primary. So in the event that the host device of that primary Canvas server, whether it's an on-prem, a VM or a virtual machine or a cloud-based server that's hosting the Canvas server goes down, then you've got the redundant Canvas server that maintains the communication to all the Canvas clients and maintains the visibility to the different sources that the operator is seeing. So it's very transparent to anybody on any of the endpoints if there ever was a failure, that there was any kind of switch from the primary to the redundant server.
All right, we have another one here. Can you run utility or Windows applications on the processor, on the operating system?
Yes, most definitely. So all Catalyst display wall processors are running a Windows 10 LTSB operating system. So with that, they can load their SCADA clients directly on there and any other type of application they want to see. And since that Catalyst processor is driving the video wall and the video wall is the desktop of that processor, they now can run those applications across the entire video wall, pixel for pixel, or any portion thereof, and be able to see those applications as well as other sources simultaneously on the video wall. So it definitely has that capability to run and host those applications.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you, Craig. Let's move on to the next use case, which is a hospital use case. With that, I'll hand it over to Erwin.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for making the time to join us today for this webinar. My name is Erwin Daley, and again, I'm the Senior Sales Engineer here at Jupiter Systems. So hospital operations isn't something we often think about when discussing traditional command and control. Yet hospitals provide services just as critical, in some cases more critical than the traditional customer. By that I mean security operations, traffic management, utilities, as Craig just spoke about. And over the years, Jupiter has partnered with several solutions providers to deliver various control room solutions within hospitals, but that has been mainly around physical security. While that's one application for our display wall processors, we are now seeing and also meeting new requirements for general operational awareness throughout the entire hospital. There's a significant number of different systems and departments that need to coordinate when it comes to running a hospital. Everything from managing logistical data, inventory, sanitation to staffing, the list goes on. So consolidation of this information in a central control room has become essential as medical institutions continue to innovate by finding new technologies that permits them to bring greater efficiencies to hospital management and patient care. So this hospital in particular, they needed to have immediate access to over 100 web pages that were being automatically generated by software leveraging various AI tools. These web pages are being used to feed back statistics on hospital operations in its entirety. They are tracking everything from rate of intake in the emergency room with average wait and turnaround times to availability of beds in the various departments. We've been hearing a lot about ventilators and personal protective equipment in the news lately, so it's easy to understand how important these management tools have become. So the Canvas software, along with our display wall processors, are responsible for tiling these web pages across multiple display walls in the operation center. By using a Jupyter solution, they were able to meet their goal, which is to establish a central command space that would serve as a hub for many of the services and functions that a healthcare institution needs to carry out. They needed a solution that offered speed, flexibility, of course, security, that's a big one, and most of all, reliability. We were able to meet all of these requirements as Canvas was designed from the ground up with these principles in mind. So in their workflow, the control room is staffed at all times with operators that all have access to our Canvas software. From a single UI, they can review performance metrics delivered by these web pages and manage the video walls as needed. Anything that raises a flag is reported up to supervisors. If a supervisor or other manager enters the control room, they immediately have a bird's eye view of any data set, allowing them to quickly understand status and assess current situations. All of this essentially leads to better efficiencies when it comes to decision making, which not only benefits the hospital, but of course, the patients as well. So their control room is not restricted to serving the single purpose, of course. They can also access local news feeds via set-top boxes that are feeding into the Jupyter processors by our input cards. This allows them to keep abreast of any regional situation that might be unfolding, which may require emergency resources. IP streams are also accessible and decoded by our processor once again. This could be a stream from an operating theater or from the rooftop helipad camera, which can help with ensuring that teams are ready to go when an air ambulance arrives. And they are executing all of this while, of course, keeping an eye on the system's integrity with a cyber monitoring component. I think Craig outlined the importance of that pretty well. Canvas supports this by leveraging various encryption protocols and also deep logging. He mentioned NERC-CIP, TLS, and so forth. The other important part of managing this type of solution is connectivity, right? And again, Craig covered that quite well. Canvas provides all of the remote tools for managing our solution, whether inside the operations center or in the IT office. This means that those team members who may be responsible for arranging all of the informational web tiles on the video wall can easily address this from wherever they're located. There's no need for them to return to central operations, right? So any user with adequate clearance, permissions, and connectivity can format and arrange these web tiles in preparation for presenting them on the display wall. And once that's done, our web-based layout launcher can recall any of these configurations with single click of a mouse or from a touch-enabled display. This further simplifies system use for doctors or other managers who really don't have a lot of time to spend understanding the nuance or every nuance of the solution. The hardware of choice for this project was the Catalyst Excel processor, which features several task-oriented hardware options, such as dedicated hardware for decoding high-quality, full frame rate 4K IP streams. As Craig previously mentioned, it offers all of the redundancies you would expect in a 24/7 environment. They also made use of our small format boardroom system, the CRS-4K. It's being used inside the teaching theaters and conference rooms. Though it supports fewer displays, it runs completely silent. So now during a managerial or staff meeting, they can have access to the same web tiles available in the operations center or a subset of those tiles arranged in a way that supports the discussion. Since Canvas is a server client architecture, our Canvas server is conveniently deployed on the hospital's own physical, the hospital's own servers in the form of virtual machines. By supporting this method of deployment, it easily allows our customers to incorporate the Canvas server into their own backup and failover routines or fault-tolerant routines. Again, Craig touched on that earlier. Not to mention, since it's their own disk image, this can they can continue to use or enforce any protective policies that they already have in place. Our servers, of course, manages role-based security schemes for users or groups of users throughout the entire Canvas ecosystem. And we've taken steps to further simplify the process by integrating the Canvas server with Microsoft Active Directory, as you heard earlier. So this mitigates the requirement to add or create new user accounts when deploying the Canvas solution. In essence, we can read user account information from Active Directory for authentication and other security challenges throughout the system. For example, access level security at the Canvas layer is something that we often talk about, or object level security. We can directly map Active Directory user accounts to the Canvas permission sets. And last comment I would make about the Canvas server, in critical operations, redundancy or a digital twin is always a must-have, and of course, hospitals are no different. Along with their own protective routines, Canvas can also provide additional software tool sets for supporting failover from one Canvas server to the next, right? These backup servers can actually even be maintained offsite if needed, which is sometimes practiced in disaster recovery environments. I mentioned our single-click web page layout launcher a little bit earlier. Using this tool basically involves navigating to a URL where the user is presented with a UI that displays a single button for each and every wall arrangement that was created and saved, sometimes referred to as a layout. So once they get to that page, they just have to select one of the objects, click on one of these buttons, which will launch the complete tile arrangement on the selected video wall. So again, really simplifying use of the system. The other part of that, of course, you've heard it before, our brand new 6.0 software features or debuts this web client. They leverage the web client. We call it we sometimes refer to it as the mimic, because basically what it does is it fully imitates what's happening on any of the display walls directly on the user's desktop. So any user can prearrange all of these web tiles or any other video source for that matter, while having the ability to have full preview on their own system. This allows them to prejudge or verify in advance the content that will end up on the display wall. I would say the biggest thing about this project was ease of use. It was critical to the success of this project. And navigating to a web page to work within a browser has kind of become second nature for most professionals, as this is generally a lot easier than learning custom desktop software that in most cases offers very little to none when it comes to familiarity. Operators need to get up to speed with very little effort. This is something we hear from most customers across all verticals. This is what we've solved with the introduction of the Canvas web client. And of course, another significant benefit of using the web client approach is that there's no requirement, as Craig mentioned, for the hospital in this case to install the Canvas client on every single computer. It's simply it simply involves having access to a web browser. And this is of course something that IT departments relish, because the fewer desktop applications they have to support, the happier they generally are. So in essence, we are providing solutions that help with the healthcare mission, which at the end of the day is about having the right resource in the right place at the right time. That's what Canvas has delivered to this and other hospitals. Back to you, Devon.
You are now great. So with that, we'll field some questions. All right, the first question is, how do you view content in a conference room?
Right, so basically, any Canvas client has access to the same information that is in the central database. So as long as you have permissions, you can access this content from anywhere. As I mentioned earlier, we have the CRS 4K that's being used in the conference room, or it's used in other huddle spaces. And basically any user can log into that system and bring up any of the Canvas information that they need to have access to. And it also is not restricted to the CRS 4K. This can actually happen on their own desktop or even mobile device as well.
All right. We got another one here. Is there a maximum number of web sources you can have on a Catalyst?
Generally, all of the testing that we've done, we run out of pixel space, screen space, before we can hit that maximum number of web pages. So in this case, this customer is using over 100 pages and they still had room for more, but at some point, these pages simply start getting too small and unusable. The other thing I would mention about that is that our systems are highly customizable. So if that is something that's of concern, of course, we can build these systems with multi-core processors up to 14 cores. We can have up to 96 gigabytes of RAM. So we can really outfit the system with the resources that are necessary to host vast number of sources, and that includes web pages and other source types as well.
All right, we'll do one more here. Do you support authentication of a web page?
Yes, absolutely. So in our admin UI, when you define a web source, you are actually able to enter the credentials for that web page as well if credentials are required. So we support both basic authentication and Windows authentication. And speaking of authentication, I would also mention that we support single sign-on to the system. So generally, once a user logs in, they really don't have to, it's rare that they actually have to log in to additional Canvas tools.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, Erwin.
My pleasure.
All right, so we'll move on to the third and final. It's a law enforcement use case. So with that, I'll hand it over to Daniel.
Thank you, Devon, and thank you everybody for taking time from your busy schedules to come join our webinar. We appreciate that very much. My name is Daniel LeCour. I'm responsible for international sales here at Jupiter, and I'm going to talk about a project that we executed actually in Europe. This is the European Police Department, major law enforcement organization, which has had a great level of complexity, primarily because of the organizational challenges or structure that this law enforcement organization had. So basically, this police unit was divided in two main departments: the regional police department and the national police department. The responsibilities are very different, in fact. The regional police department is responsible for the coordination of emergency responses all over the country. So they're the equivalent of 911 service calls here in the United States. So what they do is they take the call, and depending on the type of emergency, they dispatch first responders as needed, whether that's police, emergency responders, fire department, anti-terrorism groups, et cetera, et cetera. So this group had over 15 control rooms deployed in different regions around the country, okay? The National Police Department, that is more intended to or responsible for the security of Prime Minister, the high-level government dignitaries, actually. So, and they also have multiple control rooms deployed around the country. So in total, there were about 30 or 30-something control rooms that were already deployed, working as isolated entities, okay? So the challenge a couple of years ago for them was, one of the main requirements was to be able to view and share thousands of sources in real time and be able to share those between the multiple control rooms. Okay, the video wall controllers that they had at the time didn't support that kind of functionality. So that's why they look into, okay, what kind of products are out there that can support this, particularly given that the nature of the sources was also very complex, because they had a great diversity of sources, such as video feeds that came from actually from street cameras, feeds from helicopters, security cameras that are deployed in those VIP member residences, etc., as well as GIS data. That's Geographic Information System, which is used to mapping crime, identifying crime hotspots, and assigning officers and profiling offenders. Okay, so they had this kind of diversity of sources that they needed the assistant to be able to process. So and again, this was something that the existing system didn't provide. Obviously, from talking about law enforcement, we know that security was going to be the key thing, right? So once you get data out of a control room, to share that with other control rooms in other cities, in other regions of the country, you needed to guarantee that information was going to be protected. So the solution that they looked into, actually they looked at different vendors, and what they were looking for, and that's what comes from the solution aspect. They required a tight integration with Catalyst. That became kind of a major thing, because they wanted to have a vendor that was able to provide not only the video wall processor, but the software that runs on the processor, the collaboration software. And that was one thing that we were one of the few that were able to provide that kind of solutions, integrated solutions, because by that, what we mean is we own the life cycle of the entire product. Okay, so they're not dependent on two different vendors. One is going to be responsible for the hardware, the other one is going to be responsible for the software. So everything had to be provided by one vendor. So the ability to virtualize the Canvas server was also, like Craig and Erwin explained, it was important from IT perspective, so you can fit in their IT infrastructure, existing IT infrastructure. So that's one ability that we provided, and also the Active Directory integration. So, but what's more interesting, I would say, is how we win these kind of projects, how we won this specific project that, by the way, is an ongoing project. This started 2 years ago and is still going on, in the sense that there are so many control rooms and there are more control rooms coming. So this is an ongoing project that we're working on. But the reason we won this project is that we had the ability to partner with a major system integrator in Europe that has offices all over Europe, that work closely with the police department, the IT team, and the technical team that were very skilled, very knowledgeable individuals that they knew exactly what they were looking for, which always makes the conversation a lot easier for everybody. So we engaged these two groups with our local sales team and pre-sales team in Europe, but also we created a working environment with our product management and with our engineering, because the core solution was there, but there were some specific features that they were looking for. And that's why product management got involved, because we listened to the requests that they had for new features. And product management obviously looked at those and determined that those were, very interesting features that we are actually incorporated into the product as we speak. We have regular product roadmap discussions with the end customer, and we definitely decide what kind of features are convenient, what kind of features are usable for other types of deployments, et cetera, et cetera. So that open environment, that open exchange of ideas, and working together as a team is what allowed us to win this kind of project. So in closing, I think that you have to have good products. You have to have a solution that really fits the requirement, but you also have to have the ability to work with these organizations. Okay. And another important aspect that I have to mention also is that that goes back to one thing that Devon said at the beginning. And what it was key in this project, it was the fact that we are agnostic towards the displays. So they had already over 30 control rooms. So they had hundreds of displays already in working in these control rooms. So they didn't want to work with a supplier that would force them into changing those displays as well. So our business, our reason to exist is to create the best video wall processors with the best collaboration software. You as the end customer, as the partner, you decide what kind of displays you want to work with. So that was another important reason, because it had very important financial implications.
I want to thank everybody once again for joining.